The physical and emotional intimacy between father and child has never been more intense.
Suddenly you're in there, right in the middle, with someone that you just love to bits. We just had a huge amount of fun together, this little person who is just evolving before my eyes. And I was with her sort of all day long, every day.
Never had expectations of the good father been so high, but at the same time, never had dads felt so vulnerable, so powerless, and so excluded from family life. As divorce spiraled, the legal system marginalized fathers, making it difficult for them to stay close to their children. They became lost in a labyrinth of bureaucracy and court orders. Some took to the streets, bewildered by changes that seemed to be making them redundant.
What sort of person is going to say, actually, you know what, we don't need fathers? What sort of person is going to say, well, you know, we're going to put you through 8 years or 10 years of going through the family justice system. 2 parents are better than one. Surely, to God, that's what we believe in as a country. Surely that's what's best for children.
But when families split up, it was still the mother rather than the father who was assumed to be the natural and best parent.
Fatherhood is not really looked upon with the same sort of strength as motherhood. There's this weird concept that somehow mothers are closer to their children. It's something that I think has become a self-fulfilling prophecy, where we've said it so often that we not only believe it, we now enact it, and we now have a society where it's a norm.
In almost every home in Britain, the relationship between the modern father and his children was being redefined. 50 years of sexual liberation and feminism had changed the rules. The hands-on modern dad was very different to the traditional father figure of the past. He was more intimate, yet more insecure. This is the story of the difficult birth of the new father. By the 1990s, the new father had become an everyday phenomenon. No longer the macho man of the past, he was more home-based, he spent quality time with his children, and he began to appear as an affectionate comic character in adverts like this one. Dan Gardner was emblematic of this ideal of the new father. He was happy to put his career as a structural engineer on hold to become the full-time carer of his young children, whilst his wife pursued her career as a barrister. For Dan, it was important to forge a deep and lasting bond with his children.
I decided this was a good opportunity for me to spend time with the kids while Carrie established herself professionally in a set of chambers in Bristol, and it seemed like really good timing for both of those. I could shoulder the lion's share of looking after the household and looking after the kids and looking after an ill child while she established herself.
Dan's son suffered from a rare form of immune deficiency.
At least once he came quite close to death. You know, he sort of flatlined. We were told by the doctors that he'd had sort of temporary organ failure. I'm not quite sure how that works, but he'd been very, very ill. And I think it made him very insecure. He would struggle to get to sleep. He really would struggle to get to sleep. And he would wake up in the middle of the night a lot, sort of with congested and coughing and whatever. And I would go and lie in his bed with him. And the way he would get to sleep would be me lying on my back and him lying on my chest. So we'd be chest to chest. And that would reassure him and he would go off to sleep. But if I tried to move even an inch, or just slightly, slowly try to offload him so that I could go and get my own sleep, he would wake up and he would panic and he would get very upset. And I think he ruined my sleep, basically. My sleep patterns never recovered after that.
The new father of the 90s was proving that he could be very successful as the principal carer of young children. But traditional attitudes that mothers were always best meant there was an institutional bias against fathers taking on this role. In 1995, Paul Lawrence became the proud father of his first child, Kareem. He was a devoted dad, but after he and his partner split up, Paul found himself powerless to get the kind of contact time with his son that he wanted.
What was peculiar for me was that the entire system didn't seem to support the concept, and perhaps even myself, that a man could just parent his child. So I did what I thought was the right thing, just, did everything to make sure that she could, look after my son. Eventually, after a few battles, we had to go to court for access. When I went to court, I looked at the judge and I realized that I couldn't win, because I actually applied for full custody of my son. I realized I couldn't win because for her, first of all, it was a stretch for her to imagine that a man would want custody of his child. That was the first stretch. And without being racist in the least, I suspect a 6'3" black man with a beard just didn't fill her picture of what a father looked like. And our society is more comfortable thinking of children with women.
After a protracted legal battle, Paul was granted an access order that allowed him to see his son every other weekend. But the order was sometimes broken by Paul's ex-partner, and he soon discovered there was little he could do about it.
You feel angry. I felt angry because I was thinking to myself, well, hold on a second. I fulfilled my requirements. We have gone to court. The court said that I should have my son. All you have to do is bring him to the door at 7 o'clock on a Friday. And you choose not to do that. And you choose not to do that because you know there's nothing I can do. Monday morning, I will write a solicitor, ring a solicitor, but in reality, there's nothing I can do.
Even though Dan was the children's main carer, suddenly his position in the family seemed under threat.
In spite of having done the kind of egalitarian sort of equal roles within the partnership and family thing, when everything was in such turmoil emotionally with me, I kind of reverted to type. I kind of not reverted to type, I reverted to the traditional role, the man's traditional role. That somehow the mother has a right to the family home in a way that the man doesn't.
Although he moved out of the family home, the risk of losing his children soon focused Dan's mind.
It was non-negotiable for me that we should have equal sharing in the lives of our kids. Carrie's initial assumption was that she would, of course, get the kids, which I resisted right from the outset. I was possibly a bit cruel, actually. When she suggested that, my instant reaction was, well, actually, I've been looking after the kids. I think any court would let me have the kids. And I think that spooked her. So that brought her around very quickly to the idea of having 50-50 care arrangement.